There is a genre of Jewish, I would say, folklore. It is stories. We don't quite know where they originate, but they are told. They are told around the world as a Jewish story. Now, do they have to be Jewish? No, but this is something that exists in our tradition, as probably starting as an oral tradition, people telling each other stories with meaning, sometimes based on the Torah, sometimes not. But and there is a big book now, the compilation of different stories. And I found this one, which I heard before, but not in this particular form. So once there was a flood in a town, turning streets into rivers. An old man watched the water approach his home and prayed, "God, please, please save me, God." The flood rose quickly. The old man had to move upstairs, then even higher, until he ended up on the roof of his house. And he prayed even harder, "God, please save me." And suddenly, a police car struggled through the water, and an officer called, "Get in, we'll take you to safety." But the old man shook his head, saying, "No, thank you. God will save me." Later, a rescue boat reached him. "Take my hand, we've got you." Again, he said, "No worries, save somebody else. God will save me." As the water reached the roof, a helicopter hovered above and dropped a ladder. "Come with us now," they said. Again, the old man sent them away, saying, "Don't worry, God will help me." And not long after, the flood took him, and he died in the flood. Now, this is not the end of the story. I will, of course, reveal how the original story ends. But I would like to ask you something now. What is the main purpose of prayer? Why do we need prayer in particular, or religion in general? What's the purpose of religion? And to paraphrase the same question, or make it more helpful, what do you think the world would miss, the world would lack, if all religions were to disappear tomorrow? I think it's a good question to ask yourself from time to time. So far, the best answer I found to this question comes from Rabbi Professor Larry Hoffman. He once said in one of his lectures that religion exists to give meaning to human condition. Religion exists to give meaning to human condition. There is something that unites all people in the world, such as we all sometimes vulnerable, we all sometimes love, sometimes feel fear, sometimes hope. We are all born, we all will one day die. And religion addresses these most fundamental aspects or realities in our lives. Again, religion gives meaning to human condition. This phrase, the human condition, became most popular when the scholar Hannah Arendt wrote this book, which is called The Human Condition. In it, she describes the basic conditions under which human life happens, the features of existence. One of her key starting points is that human life is always lived in between birth and death. It might seem on the surface, but it's not. Because we die, she says, human deeds and words can disappear. Please be careful, it's okay. It's okay. We use technology here during services, right? So, and of course, it's better to turn the phones off, but it's okay when it happens. It's not a problem. So coming back, it's part of human condition. Sometimes we use our phones. It's okay. So coming back to this question. So because we die, Hannah Arendt says, human deeds and words can disappear. This is why the world often preserves them through traditions, through records and education. Because we are born, she says, history is never sealed or predestined. New people challenge our traditions. They repair institutions or start building new ones. We live with the cycle of birth and decay, as our prayer book says. All earthly things end, and others replace them. Our texts, the Torah, Tanakh, the rabbinic literature, and our stories, they don't ignore this reality, they address them. Torah is full of stories about beginnings and ends, about how people are born, sometimes easy, sometimes with a struggle, about how people die, again, sometimes quietly and peacefully, sometimes not. And there is a curious detail in this week's Torah portion. And as I mentioned during the reading, after all but one plagues have happened, the Torah narrative suddenly pauses and shifts to the Jewish calendar, suddenly, and commandments to mark Passover every year. HaChodesh hazeh lachem rosh chodashim. Rishon hu lachem lachodshei hashana. This month shall mark for you the beginnings of all months. It shall be the first of all the months of the year for you. That's the beginning of our calendar. How do you structure your life? So what's the first year of our existence? What's the first month? And depending on what do you mark as the first, it shapes your life. It gives structure and it reflects your ideology. But it's not just the beginning of the calendar. The book of Zohar, the Jewish mystical, Kabbalistic interpretation of the Torah and Judaism, has a beautiful commentary on this verse. It says that the moon represents the Jewish people. Just as the moon slowly disappears and then reappears again and again, the Jewish people often seem overwhelmed by darkness and evil, only to re-emerge, following the cycle of darkness and redemption. For example, the destruction of the Second Temple was followed by the rebirth and introduction of Rabbinic Judaism. The best we have in Judaism today is the result of many centuries of reinvention that followed by a disaster, destruction. The moon represents the idea of a cycle, the balance between old and new, between beginnings and ends. Similar to the book of Zohar's interpretation, for Arendt, morality is something that's based on reality of our lives. And she never denies these realities, this human condition. For Arendt but nevertheless, Arendt refuses to make death the deepest philosophical focus of her works. This is how I understand her point of her book. The most important fact about human existence is not that we end, but that we arrive to this world capable of starting new things. New life, new ideas, new institutions, new buildings, new worlds. Life has more meaning because it is finite. This afternoon, our community has a Shabbaton with the theme, let's talk about dying. And it's a gentle invitation to speak about mortality, not mainly as a practical checklist, but as a thoughtful, honest conversation about the human condition. So many of us feel fear, or questions and grief and have many unspoken stories. And silence can make those burdens much heavier. It's the silence, not speaking about it, can make it like the plague of darkness, lonely, and make us feel it in our bodies. So speaking about mortality in a careful, respectful company can be a kind of liberation. It can lift some of the weight. It can bring light into the darkness that can be felt. So this Shabbaton is open to everybody. You don't need to be an LGS member, and it is not too late to join. If this topic touches something in you, please know that there is no expectation to speak, although there is a possibility to speak. There is an opportunity to speak. Being there is just enough. So if you would like to come, just stay after the service and Kiddush, and we will find you a seat. Let's come back to the story about the old man who died in the flood. The end of that story and God's answer is probably what you would expect it to be. In a miraculous, imaginative world of stories, after his death, the old man stood before God, confused and hurt. God, I trusted you, he said. Why didn't you save me? He said. And God replied, what do you mean I didn't save you? I sent you a police car, a boat, and a helicopter, and you turned them all away. So may this Shabbat help us to see each other and become better witnesses to one another's lives. May we learn to recognize darkness without being frightened of it, and to find meaning in our lives. Shabbat Shalom.